Hello, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Arteries. I'm your host, Noël Duplaa. Each week, we're going to sit down and talk to people involved in the arts about their life, work, influences, creativity, just basically what and how they do what they do. This week on the show, I get to sit down with Steve Ryan, the lead guitarist of the crunchingly loud, stadium math rock band Punchface Champions and former frontman of the now sadly extinct indie rock group The Kubas. We chatted about a wide range of topics, from making music with a tape recorder and a cheap acoustic guitar, playing to 35,000 people at Malahide Castle, the desperate struggle to get songs out of your head before they just evaporate into the air, and lying to journalists for the sheer crack. So, without further ado, here it is, our first guest, Steve Ryan. So, thank you for coming. Thank you for being our very first guest.
Pleasure.
Have you actually, just to set the bar, have you ever had a good interview? Like, have you ever been interviewed well?
I'll tell you later. But no, it's always, my interview experience has very much been you're going into a radio to do you're releasing a single or something for a band, and, a PR guy gets you a radio interview and the guy doesn't know who you are, and it's kind of, you're in between an ad and you're answering the same questions, and I don't know, very generic, and play a song and then you're gone.
All right. Where'd you grow up?
Glasnevin, Dublin, born and bred.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to school in a secondary school called St. Aidan's in Whitehall.
Okay.
I spent more time outside the door or in detention than actually in class learning things. But
because even then you were a messer.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, the priority was just trying to be a nuisance rather than anything else, or upset people to entertain myself. Most of the time. It's been a hard fought craft.
Were you into sports, or
no?
Were you academic at all?
No, I suppose I was always more drawn towards art. Like I was big into art that was the only. I didn't actually study music or anything in school. Yep. I was into art a lot, and more kind of technical stuff like woodwork and that kind of stuff. The way music was taught, it didn't. Everyone had to do a little bit of a few different kind of non-core classes,
right?
Like, music and art and kind of a few different things like that, and then you have to choose after like a couple of months,
which one you actually stick with.
Yeah. Okay. So I just found the way music was taught to like 14, 15-year-olds.
Yeah.
I just hated it. I was
like heavy on the theory, or
just really boring. Too much of a theory. You have to learn the recorder. Fuck this. I could already play bit of drums and I could play guitar, and was writing songs at that stage, and I just kind of guess I felt I was above this bullshit, so I don't want to do this. I don't want some guy who I think is a jerk telling me about music.
And what instrument did you start learning?
I think I started figuring out guitar when I was about 7, and then forgot about it for a few years, and then started playing bass in a band when I just learned to play the bass to be in the band. So the band started before the instrument kind of way. So I was playing bass and singing in the first band I was in, which was fun but terrible.
Yeah.
Understandably.
What was that band called?
That band was called Cirrus.
And the guitar that you were playing on, was that was just around the house, or did someone get it for you? Or?
It was an old buy and sell jobby. I think I got some other lad had this really old, I can't even remember, I don't even know, it was a name I recognised, but it was like a jazz style bass that had like the bridge guard and stuff, and like the thumb rest above the strings, and it was really, really old. And it's a shame, I think I ended up selling it for like 50 quid.
Yeah.
When I decided, I wanted to get a Fender copy instead of some other bullshit thing. But anyway, I was never one for nostalgia or sentimentality, so things always got moved on pretty quickly when I didn't have a need for it anymore.
And are you that kind of do you do that with like pedals, like recycling them? And
I don't know, gear wise, I tend to just find what works for me, and unless it stops working for what I'm trying to do, generally I rarely will change or buy new equipment unless I'm trying to do something that I can't do with what I have. It's led by the need to do something rather than the reverse way. Some people will get gear and then be inspired to do stuff based on what they've found out of a piece of equipment, rather.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And to what extent, like when you're buying pedals and stuff like that, or your guitar, like were you researching that, and like were you going in and playing them in shops or reading up about
Yeah, I
what other
guess
people played?
I'd end up finding a bit of equipment, playing it once, and then it would stick in my head, and I mightn't actually get around to owning that piece of equipment for a few years later, but
Yeah.
I just remember. And then a couple of years later, where I've been trying a few other guitars, and this is always sticking in my head, and I want to go back to that one.
Yeah.
Like I did that. I'm back playing a Strat now. I kind of played a Strat maybe 10 years ago or something. And I had an area that I was comfortable in with that sound. And then I've had a range of different guitars in between that I was encouraged to be playing by other people.
To
like,
fit the band?
Yeah, fit bands, or like, Strats are boring, like try this kind of or whatever. But I just think I've just been drawn back to that, and I ended up back where I started.
Yeah.
Out of stubbornness more than anything.
And so like in the Cubas, were you playing a Strat?
I was playing a Strat, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then the start of Punchface Champions, I was playing a Strat until I was made to get rid of it.
Go on.
I know.
Was that a band meeting? Like,
it was a band, exactly, yeah.
It's just an intervention.
We need to go to the Stag's Head immediately. Words need to be exchanged.
Do you remember like the first pedal that or
Well, in the early days, a lot of it is based on what's available, what's kind of secondhand purchasable, or what your ma will buy you for Christmas,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So I had a big muff, of course. That was fun.
Well, that's Nirvana and
Yeah, there you go. And then like a DD3 or something, Boss Today, and then a wah pedal, which I quickly realized that I hate. I don't think there's any need for wah ever again.
It's a very specific effect, yeah. Like Hendrix uses it all right, and then we can just wrap it up.
They figured it out, yeah. Well, let's just move on now.
So grunge is where it starts for you, pretty much.
Pretty much.
Like I know you have a Weezer fetish.
I do. I love loads of things about them. Their vocal from melodies and then harmonies as well. Like, you could nearly say at times they over harmonize, but then it's amazing. So a lot of other bands, you'd leave out harmonies in certain parts and then you'd hit it home. And I love it. I love a lot of harmonies.
And so like who from grunge did you like?
So Nirvana was a big one. And then so like Mudhoney and Dinosaur Jr. and then the Pixies. Then very quickly discovered the Pixies, and they're probably still my favorite band to this day.
Yeah. In terms of your family, was there anyone else musical in your family?
No, not really. Not kind of in a way that they play musical instruments. In terms
of getting into music, how did that happen then? Without it really being in the house too much.
So I had, when I was about 7, there was like an after school guitar lesson that one of the teachers did, like, once a week for like an hour.
Yeah.
Classical guitar, like very, not overly kind of theory based stuff. It was just quite,
learn how to play.
Learn it a little bit, like,
Yeah.
So I did that for a while, and then so I had this kind of like half-sized acoustic guitar that was there, which I'd mess around with.
Yeah.
Weirdly, then I stopped doing these. I didn't actually know how to play the guitar.
Yeah.
But I had the thing, and I weirdly then started when I was about 10. Started multi-tracking songs, but I couldn't play so I'd have this like out of tune, detuned acoustic guitar, and then I'd set up 2 tape decks with the ones you could record on.
Yeah.
So I'd get this and I'd just find like a single kind of string kind of riff or whatever.
Yeah.
Record it onto a thing, and then get the other one recording, play that one back, and then like try and play along with the other thing.
That's awesome.
It's really weird. So I just kind of had, like, I don't know where it came from, but interest in it. And then as soon as I hit secondary school, you're meeting other kids, and I play this and I play this, and just started jamming with people.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
And so the first group was like people from your class, or
the first band that I was in. So there was a guy in another class that I met, and he was like, "Oh, I play guitar." He's like, "What you play?" I was like, I was just saying I play everything. Why not? I can. I'm still like that. Yeah. What is it? What do you need? Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I'll figure it out. Yeah. And he goes, "Come and have a jam." So I went back, and his mate, when I was 11 years old, turns out to be Dave, that I play with now. So then we're in his place, and he's playing for a few years already, and he's playing in a band with his cousins, and he has guitars and he has bass and stuff. So, and it just kind of initially was like more about the idea of meeting up and saying that we're going to have a band, but we're not actually really doing a lot. We're more hanging out and just being kids or whatever. And then eventually I just started playing more, and we'd be tricking around and stuff, and then all of a sudden I'm playing bass, and then Dave's playing guitar in this band, and that was fun for a while. And then I started playing in another band as a singer and a guitar player. At that time, Dave was he had this band with his cousins, and they were called Surreal Dream. Yeah.
Awesome.
Are you okay?
Taking a note of that for when I talk to Dave.
Here, do you need a minute?
Surreal Dream.
Yeah.
It's magic.
Yeah. He's not going to like me for that one. And then I learned drums by, when we'd take a break, I'd hop on the drums and start like hitting them.
Because they're the loudest, funnest thing.
Well, like the drums they are the loudest ones. They're also for me, well, maybe it's different for everyone, but I always find drums are different to other instruments. You can look at drums and listen to drums, and you can be learning it just by experiencing it, because you can see what the person is doing, physically, and you can hear it. It sounds the way it plays, while in other instruments it's, you've got like keys and all this kind of stuff, like,
who needs it?
Notes and tuning and this kind of thing. So that was good. So all of a sudden I was just able to play drums. I can't really remember how that happened, but and then I got my own kit, and then I was then at that stage, and I was like, I can play bass, drums, guitar, sing, dick around on a synth, like kind of single finger, like but all along through that, like, I guess the underlining motivator that probably developed was always into recording. So I very quickly got like 4 tracks and stuff, and then developed on from that, and then finally got my first Pro Tools set up then when I was a bit older, maybe 18 or something. So that was always with bands then. I was always then all of a sudden a producer and an engineer,
right,
along with everything else. And then you kind of take over. Well, I kind of took over a lot of like the directing about the way things need to be done, or we need to do this, and figuring out the process of what the priority is in terms of making up these goals and stuff, which is, it just kind of, I guess it kind of coached me into having this goal-based approach to bands, like a management kind of aspect, I guess, if you want to say, where you're setting the pace for other people in terms of recording and what you need to achieve in the practice room to prepare yourself to get in to record something, and then take it from there.
Well, so I mean, it kind of sounds like that, like there was, partially because you're going into bands where bands for the most part tend to be disorganized arty people, So because you're the only one in there with the kind of drive to do that, you kind of get put into the leadership
Oh
place.
no, I'm a complete mess. I'm not trying to suggest. I'm just the same as them, if not worse. But I guess it was more just that interest in the recording process that drove me to want to be in that role, you know.
Okay.
And then
Because as in like they're more interested in just like the kind of playing of it, and you want to actually get the finished product.
um, mm, no, it's probably more selfish than that. It's that I wouldn't let them do that because I want to do
Okay.
it.
So it's more of a control thing
Yeah, I
than
guess,
okay.
if I'm honest, yeah, maybe. But then, then there's an overlap with that where the more knowledge you get on something, the more it makes sense for you to be like leading that stuff
Yeah.
now, Um, and then that led me on to kind of studying a bit of sound engineering in college. And then I was straight into working in a recording studio after that. So that was a huge learning curve as well, both technically and musically. Again, just being around like a lot of session players and just seeing people do stuff really well. I did like a bit of work with Rob Malone. He's a really good Irish bass player. He plays in Lear. Also, Wayne Sheehy is a really amazing drummer as well. He does a lot of work with Damien Dempsey.
Yeah.
And just a great session drummer as well for a lot of other people. And Thomas Walsh from Pugwash.
Yeah.
He was in like doing some guest vocals on a few bits and pieces. Just watching people come in and just straight away they just slot into the role and it's just like effortless and just nailing it straight away.
And it kind of sets a bar for you.
Just sets a bar and a songwriter's approach as well, Particularly, I did a good few sessions with Rob, and I think still to that point, the role of a bass in music was very much like you're playing underneath the guitar, and then the guitars do the interesting stuff, but he'd be just weaving around the guitars rather than just like sitting underneath doing the same thing.
Yeah.
That thing of still holding providing the role of the bass, but like finding notes that are, just bending the kind of the feel of certain things.
Yeah, stay melodic but still keeping the low end.
That's right. So then that kind of, I think that inspired me to change, to really think of the bass as the bass needs to be the business, and then that frees the guitars up to meander. No, but that was pretty cool. That experience, that I did learn an awful lot in that studio experience. I also think I learned that I prefer to save music for a personal experience than turn it into something that you're phoning in.
Like, did you find it ate into your joy of it?
Not at the time, but I think it's become more and more difficult to make a living out of being an engineer, and even speaking to a lot of like local engineers, it's a struggle, more and more people are, recording themselves and like self-producing, and everyone has Pro Tools in the kitchen now, so it turns into a situation where there's a lot less studios there, so there's less work, and then the other problem is there's an awful lot of music colleges in Dublin City alone, so like every year there's like 100 new qualified young sound engineers being released into the market, who are all and it's fair enough. Like, but a lot of these people are going to work for free, or little or nothing. So in the greater scheme of things, do you want to be? I was like, I don't really want to be doing that,
Just the scrabble of it.
Just the scrabble of it, and just take it more as of a learning experience and apply that to music for myself personally, for my own creative outlet.
Yeah. And so like being in bands, then that tends to be more of a kind of, I don't know, coming from a place of blowing off steam kind of thing.
Largely. Expression is a big, like, there's the creative side, and then there's the there's the kind of, for want of a better term, business angle, you know?
Sure.
Even if it's not a commercially viable group or that, you know, there's still that kind of business head side of things that you're...
So like you're talking about like once you physically finished all the recording and everything, like the actual part of promotion for that.
You know, timelines and ways to go about things and
and
money and stuff and
keeping momentum going and all that.
But no, just to answer you, it is largely it is for like a release and an expression, like music, in probably a way that I don't appreciate enough because I don't really think about it like that. But if I was to think about it, definitely that's why I'm doing it. It's I guess it's escapism.
Well, I think I remember saying to you before that the way I always thought of Punch Face Champions was like where you have like a 5-minute song that's good, but you're like, if you're showing it to someone, you're like, wait for this bit at 4 minutes here. That bit there, isn't that great? And you guys just take all those little bits from songs and discard the rest of the song and then jam them together.
I think we finished our first song in a year there recently. It does take us about 6 months to write a song. Largely because most of them are 6 songs that we're just trying to squeeze together and argue about transitions working and not working. And
is it that you bring in riffs? Are you bringing in songs and shrinking them down and cutting them up?
Not so much songs. A lot of the time, Dave might come in with a riff or just like an idea, undeveloped, completely undeveloped. Just this is something I found, and we'll just jam it and see what happens. Or I might do the same. It would be very rare where someone would say, I have this song, it goes like this, and have actually like the bones of a complete song.
And like, were you, in terms of how you write, like, would you be prolific? Would you kind of write to purpose?
There's 2 ways I write in terms of like origination.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just pick up the guitar and then say, let's write a song, and I'll just start playing something and it'll just happen. But more so I write songs walking in the street or walking home from the pub in the morning, singing into like a little voice recorder on the phone.
Do you have
like,
a lot of those?
A lot of that stuff, yeah. But before the days of back in my time now, before the old smartphones came in, I used to ring myself to leave myself a voicemail of like an idea that I had, and I'd be singing. So then the next day, like, I've got a voicemail, and I'm like, listen to a voicemail of myself singing drunk melodies at myself.
I don't know. I find that happens a lot with, like, I can remember there was one time where I went to see, I think, what band? I don't know, some band anyway. And I was walking home. I was just planning on walking for like 10, 15 minutes and then hopping in a cab or something. And I just got this idea for a song in my head. And I knew that if I got in the cab, he'd have the radio on or he'd talk, and it was just gone. So I ended up just walking home for an hour, walked in the door, and like my mum was like, hey, how'd it go? I was like, shut up, immediately get to a guitar and get this down.
Yeah, I used to drive an ex-girlfriend crazy, that kind of stuff, where this is just something I have to do.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain to somebody who doesn't know what you're going through in that situation. It's like, I have to go to my computer and I need to record this, like,
or it's gone.
But I need to tell you, no. And then all of a sudden you're in trouble, and
Hey, wake me up, take me back to the place I was before, the place I adore, stuck in my ways. It's a shame, never cared where I was going, as long as there's clouds. Ooh. You were the only one that I could see. This is a lonely time for love, 'cause I gave
Let's actually, going back. You had Cirrus, you had that band that we don't know with Dave.
Yeah.
And then after, that's like you around, what, 18 now?
Yeah, I guess so. Around the time I was working in the recording studio, I spent a lot of days in there when there's nobody there, and I'd stay late or stay all night sometimes, and I'd have the kit set up and I'd have guitar and I'd basically be multi-tracking just my own ideas, writing stuff. I got hijacked into playing drums in a band then that I met in the studio, so I played drums in a band for a few years then, and then that band broke up. And then me and the other guy, the songwriter in the band, we started a new band called the Kubas, where I was the singer.
And that was the one. What were you doing in South Africa? Were you?
Oh, just on holidays.
Yeah.
Were we there? Oh, actually no, we weren't there at all. That was just a lie.
That was just a lie. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, our PR person advised us that our story is boring and we should spice it up a bit.
That is good advice.
Yeah, I shouldn't be saying this, but yeah, why not?
Oh yeah.
I don't really subscribe to that anymore, but at the time we were like, oh, if you're trying to make a PR campaign and you're trying to push it was a pop rock kind of vibe, you need to have a story that sets you apart.
So Jacob was just living in.
Jacob was living here since long before I met him. I think he moved over here when he was 16.
So yeah, that's what I thought, and then I read that stuff, and I was like, "This is blowing my mind."
Yeah, good.
Steve found Jacob.
yeah. I adopted him. The band I was playing drums in, I joined them. They were called Carrier.
Okay.
And then that fell apart. Then
for any particular reason, or
personality differences, largely. It was very much gauged towards a kind of a get rich quick scheme, which always turns out fucking great for everyone. Yeah, there was no real heart in it,
Yeah.
So I kind of got seduced into it initially because there was management involved and we were getting some supports. We supported Pink in Malahide Castle. That was good crack.
Okay.
Still my biggest gig ever, and I just wish it was with a band that I liked more.
Yeah. And you had releases, did you? Like, did you release an album?
Yeah.
Or
I think they were calling it a mini album at the time. There was 8 tracks on it.
Right, yeah.
And then we were halfway through recording a second album for release, and it just kind of did its thing. The problem was that because of the way the band was set up, the heart wasn't there to go beyond the issues, And then the management were being weird, and they had us tied into this management contract. And then they're like, okay, so we'll pay for the recording of the next thing.
Yeah.
So we're going to sign this contract to be your record company.
Okay.
It's just confidential. It's like you're having a meeting with your manager about them being your record company when he should be with you negotiating. Again, Yeah. So because this is the situation, then me and the other main songwriter, Brian, we were like trying to get some advice about like, what the hell is this? Like talking to me, getting some music law kind of advice. And we got some advice, and it's a bit suspicious,
From the agent as well, was it?
yeah, from the manager. We need to talk to you about this guy. What do we do, chief?
Let me change suit.
And then it turns out it's like, so we were looking into, obviously at this stage it's all finance. Then what you're really talking about here, it's all about money, which is,
you're locking into it.
Again, that's kind of part of the tension of the whole thing blowing up.
Yeah.
So they'd be taking their management cut, but then on top of that, they wanted like a huge percentage as a record company. And then we were talking to them, it's like, but okay, so what's the plan in terms of publishing? How's that going to work? And he says, oh no, we're going to be a publisher as well. We're like, you're basically getting paid 3 times for the same job.
The same thing, yeah.
I mean, there's still just one. It's still just one guy. He can't do 3 people's work. He's still going to do one person's work.
Yeah. Did he have other bands as well?
He flipped out like when we suggested that we don't know about wanting to have our publishing and our record deal and management all tied up in one thing. So he started flipping out, and so then everyone just flipped out and it all just fell apart.
Right.
So then we thought there was lots of things that we were doing right there. Let's just try this again with the same kind of idea, but let's do it better.
You were writing well together.
Yeah. So then I was singing, and then we set up the Kubas, and that worked a lot better. And they do pretty good. We released our album, and we had some management as well. We nearly got picked up by Sony Ireland for publishing. Okay. And then it just didn't materialize. The guy, I don't know whether it's how much truth in it or not, but the guy retired like halfway through. Yeah, so all of a sudden we didn't have the contact who was looking at us. Right. Stopped being there, and then it kind of lost steam a little bit.
Just like the momentum, like that took the wind out of your sails a bit.
A little bit, yeah. And then because we had put so much time into the actual album and a good bit of money, PR, and that kind of thing. And you know, we did the usual first album trap where we had no material.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we'd just been focused on the live show and promotion and like and gigs and stuff like that. You know, so we had like 4 new tunes, you know, that weren't on the album that we were working on. And then funnily enough, then around that time when it was getting a bit rocky, Jacob started jamming with Dave and Naomi from Bitchfalken. She was playing bass, and they were like,
so that was like the origins.
Yeah, that's it. They were, and then Jacob's like, oh, we're doing this thing and might rock in, like, you know, have a listen or whatever. And
is this is pre the Cubas officially ending? Is it? Okay.
Yeah. I think then I just kind of, it hit me that I've been trying to make music for other people for the last like 2 bands, you know, not necessarily music that I don't like.
Yeah.
But the criteria for the songwriting was to fit into like these radio formats and you know, obsessing over how long it takes the vocal to start in the singles and this kind of stuff, you know. There was just something so refreshing about an instrumental band that wasn't trying to be exactly, it was the opposite of what I had been doing for the last few years. So it was just this breath of fresh air. And I don't have to sing, I don't have to write any lyrics, I don't care how long the songs are, it doesn't matter about, you know, there was no rules like to that, and I was just really attracted to that. And then that was kind of marked the end of the Cubas then, that realization, I guess.
But as well, I think the thing about Punchface, I always felt was, like, I don't know how the dynamics work within the band, but it always felt like the songs were very much meritocracies. You know, that kind of thing of where you're suggesting a different way to do a song or something, and some people are against it, some people are for it, and you play it, and it's just really obvious which one is right.
Actually, no. That
really?
Often,
quite the opposite.
Yes, I guess because of a lot of the times in a transition or something, there's a few ways it can be done, you know. So it's obvious to one person that this is clearly the way that we should be doing this, like, you know.
Yeah.
And then somebody else has just a different take on it. So in early days there was an awful lot of standoffs and an awful lot of standing looking at each other in silence with grumpy faces, but it's evolved much more into kind of hash it out for a while. If we're not going to agree on this, put it to a vote and accept it and move on. You know, which has been working.
That's pretty grown up.
It's fine when I win, but when
you
I
and
don't
Dave
win,
are both fairly big personalities as well, so
yeah, I guess so. Well, when it comes to having an argument, yeah, sure.
Yeah, having opinions.
Yeah, no. I think we'd all admit that a lot of the time it comes down to me and Dave, like Mommy and Daddy having a fight, and Jacob and Des have to listen there and kind of.
Do you ever
cry a little bit?
Do you ever like build the argument just for the sake of opposing
for
Dave?
The crack, 99% of the time. This is going back to me just trying to annoy people with what I do. That's part of the whole release for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why I'm playing music. You know.
And do you think
it's a spiritual release in making somebody else unhappy?
Fair enough. Do you think there's an element of the winding up thing in the actual Punchface Champions music, like the kind of leading into one direction and going into the other?
You see, there's no real. Well, actually, you have to be careful. I was going to say there's no real formula. At least there shouldn't be. And sometimes when it falls into a formula of stuff that we've done before, that's when I feel like that's something we shouldn't be doing. Like, you know, the nice thing that I feel that I like about the music is that I'm doing things that I feel shouldn't happen, but then you do it in a way that works, and then it's good, you know?
Yeah.
You know, when you're playing for a certain length of time and it takes you that long to write, and, you know, your style is your style, and, you know, you're playing a quite specific type of music, you know, like 2 guitars, drums, bass, instrumental, post-rock kind of stuff. When it starts feeling like something we've done before, or when it starts feeling like it's predictable based on our past material, that's when I feel like this is not what we should do at this point, like, yeah.
in terms of like lyrics, where so like for lyrics, would you be mostly influenced by other lyricists?
Words don't really register with me at all when I listen to music. My ears are just honed. I listen 100% to the melody, and the way I would have wrote a vocal based song would be basically just pick up whatever instrument, find a note, and then just explore a vocal melody or an area, and then build a song around that, and then the lyrics would be kind of fill in the gaps kind of situation.
Okay. You know? Would you kind of sit down and write lyrics in a single session kind of thing, or?
No. When I was in the Cubas, it was a real struggle writing lyrics. So either I'd happen upon them just because when I'm writing the melody, certain kind of vowel sounds would be fitting in, and then they'd just evolve into words.
Yeah.
Subconsciously, not as a decision.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they might not be great, but you have like words that you're singing. I actually, when we were recording the album, which kind of led to maybe why I was exhausted with that kind of approach around the time the Cubas ended, and I started playing with Punch Face Champions. We recorded everything, got cold feet, and decided that the lyrics were all shite. And then
everyone did, or you did?
I think I did, but then there wasn't anyone saying no. So then basically put the whole thing on hold and rewrote like 80% of the lyrics.
Fuck, okay.
And then re-recorded the vocals, yeah. And then went a bit.
Were you right, or were you freaking out a bit?
No, like the lyrics probably sucked, you know.
What?
But you know, whether you should be forcing and delaying a project and sucking the life out, like there's a trade-off, you know.
Yeah.
I guess even to that point, I was always of the opinion and I still don't hear lyrics like that. I haven't changed in that. My ear hasn't changed in terms of how I hear music. I used to not think that the words mattered at all, but I've more recently like realized that, you know, it's really kind of 50-50, you know. And
also, do you ever find that thing like where you learn a song by someone and you realize that they're playing patterns on the guitar rather than chords? Like they've obviously just been sitting with the guitar and they found a cool pattern and now they're moving it up and down the frets, or something like that.
No, not really.
Haven't found that?
I am useless at it's quite embarrassing sometimes. I recently had a family kind of birthday occasion thing, and people are like, "Oh, bring the guitar and like play some songs." It's like I'm gonna sound rude, but I don't know how to play any songs. And
this one's called Lead Line from 7.
Yeah, to someone who's not a musician or in that kind of area, it's a weird concept to understand. But it sounds like I'm just taking the piss or trying to be awkward, which a part of it is. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. But you know, they'd expect it to be thrown out like, you know, classics. I disappoint a lot of people.
That's an amazing place to end, I think.
See the morning return.
Thanks to our guest, Steve Ryan, for coming in to talk to us today. If you enjoyed the show, remember to subscribe, like, share on whatever social platforms you use, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. Anything you have, spread the word. The more listeners we have, the more of these we can make. All the music for today's show was provided by Steve Ryan at the Kubas and Punchface Champions. You can find all of the music and the band's links on our website, thearteries.org. The show was produced and edited by David Cantan, presented by me, Noël Duplaa. Thank you for listening. This has been The Arteries.